Greetings again, friends. This is an important video, and it will likely be the last one in this series that I'm doing unless I'm led otherwise. How we talk about sex and how we relate to humor about sex will directly determine whether we fall into immorality or even are able to come to a greater intimacy in marriage. Now, let me say this another way. Your intimacy and any immorality is directly related to how you talk or joke about sex. Now, regularly talking openly and publicly about sexual things, it's not really a beneficial thing. The sexual talk is just supposed to be between the married couple and not something that is done in a public way. And sadly, many people think that it is okay if they talk about this sexual stuff out in the open, and they probably think that it's okay to laugh and joke and even get someone in more of a sexual mood if they're talking about sexual things or even their own experience. Now, keeping sexual discussions out in the open is going to cause more immorality and the behaviors that go with that and the lustful pursuits that go with that, instead of the loving intimacy that is intended to be in marriage. So I hope that you will stick with me here in this important video as we look at these things. Now, people naturally desire intimacy. The desire for love, especially is part of this, and the close relationship to another is part of how we are made in God's image. And God, we know, is love. And God provided acceptance and forgiveness in Jesus Christ and his sacrifice on the cross. Now, God is a social being, and he has perfect fellowship and diversity amongst the Godhead, the triune Godhead, with this resurrection of the Son, Jesus Christ, from the dead. The last video that we talked about dealt with God's warnings and his welcomes related to sex. Now, you should go look at that to see more about that. But this video is going to address warnings, but statements of truth about how we talk about sex or how we may joke about it. Now, a person's sexual activity is a very intimate thing. It is something that is intended to be private and not public in nature and openly discussed. Why do you think the Bible even couches its language in other words to keep it more private and separate? Now, a person's sexual expression is something that should not be bragged about, as is often true with young people. It shouldn't be something that is brought out into open discussion with friends or family, because that would bring it to the attention of people and could lead to more problems there. So let's think about this truth and warning that you should consider. Now, the first one is this. The truth is privatizing sexual intimacy. You must privatize sexual intimacy. But the warning there is if you don't, the public discussing of sexual specifics hinders the intimacy. Now, this really should be an obvious thing because it is such that too many people just talk about sex more publicly. And they even get into sexual specifics and joke about it in the humor, and they do so with family and friends. And this taking this most intimate act and then putting it out into the open is not a good thing, because it brings this into what is intended to be just between the man and the woman. And it also leads to people even potentially thinking about that sexual specific with the people they're talking about. So it is unwise and could lead to more immorality, and it would hurt a marriage and the intimacy that both parties are seeking. So, considering some wisdom there, we should look at these verses in Proverbs. Listen to this in Proverbs 5:16 and 17. It says, "Should your fountains be dispersed abroad, streams of water in the streets, let them be only your own, and not for strangers with you." Now, this is certainly addressing sexual promiscuity and what could be considered, as some have said, prostitution on the streets. But I think it also is something that is interpretive or even applied easily to this issue we're talking about, because the expression here is your fountains. That's the idea that's spoken of in this verse, and that they should be private between you and only yours. That means you and your spouse. So that should be something that is not made more public and not involve strangers in any way or anyone else that is not part of that couple, that marriage relationship. Now, newlywoods have to be particularly careful because there can be specific details that are given to family members or even parents, and it could lead to improper judging of one or both of the newlywed people, and it can lead to harming relationships and hurting the future intimacy of that couple. So that should be avoided also. And remember that the Bible even keeps the sexual words in that less obvious expression, like we're even talking about here, and doing this for important educational perspectives, to give this biblical perspective, because the society gives you the wrong perspective. So we're giving you the biblical perspective. Now, I address a lot of things about the sexual details in that first video and the problems it led to when we just simply said, let's talk about sex. And you should go look at that video to see more about that. Sexual talk is one of those things that's a dominant part of society. And it's a dominant part of many people's lives. It's evidenced by what you can observe in any television program and movie, and what is even in music and even other forms of media. You see this both visually represented and in written things, like romance novels and how they get so graphic and things. Now, again, there is a whole list of videos that I deal with aspects of sexual behavior, and the sexual issues playlist is one you certainly should just consider, because all of these videos are put in there. But one I recorded a while back was specifically dealing more with what I'm talking about here, and it is that was based on a blog article I wrote long ago, talking about privatizing God and publicizing sex. And that's really the opposite of what it should be. So that's a good one to also consider as well. Now, a problem that we often have is that the world puts things exactly opposite of what they should be. And we often publicly are talking about things that shouldn't be out in public. It will harm the relationship. That should be considered. And we should be not talking about the sexual things in particular. We should not be avoid talking about God, but yet that still is something that people say, oh, that's private, that's your own personal belief and private, and it shouldn't be that way either. So it's reversed from what it should be and what biblically would be there. But let's talk about the second truth that you should consider, and it is this: protect sexual expression. And the warning there is that joking and discussing sex publicly increases immorality. Now, we've kind of addressed this a little, but just think this through a little bit, because sexual joking and discussing in society has increased the amount of immorality, and that American sexual revolution in the 60s, 1960s, and 1970s gave this more tolerant and open attitude towards sexual issues, and it has caused much ruin in society, and it does so in our day today as those things have gone through the society and been more public. You have broken marriages, you have broken homes, you've got the uncommitted sexual relationships, or just people living together. You've got perverted same-sex relationships being glorified. You've got sexually transmitted diseases, and even ones like AIDS that are hurting people to the point of death. You've got all the promiscuity. You've got the wayward children and the various sexual crimes that exist, like incest and rape and child trafficking. That's a huge problem that the current administration in America is trying to address, but that is a huge problem. And all of this comes as fruit from a public use and an open sexual thinking and joking. And if you don't believe me, just think that through a little bit, because that's exactly what we've seen since that. And at the heart of it is this sexual talk and joking that goes with it. It's difficult to find any professional comedian, any comedian that does not use sexual joking. It's hard to find anyone. You would be hard pressed to find any television show anymore in modern times that would not be talking about sexual things and joking about them, and making that sexual activity without the morality that should be there, or making it seem, because it's so open, that it's dirty or that it's base. And that's what that public expression does. It makes it that way and thinking that way. And that seeps into the marriage, and it leads to problems in marriage and less intimacy because of the way sex is viewed in society. This is one reason why I'm addressing it in these videos. And friends, you've got to stop talking about sex in public ways and in ways at your workplace, and even joking or laughing with people that are telling those jokes, or among your friends, or even family. You've got to avoid that because it's only going to harm. And as I've said in this, so think about those truths that I've talked about. Now, if it is, of course, if it's private, if it is between you and your spouse, then that's okay. And that'll kind of bring us to the third point that I have here. And this could surprise some of you, but you should stop talking about sex in public ways, but you certainly should not stop talking about that between you and your spouse. In fact, that's important. So listen to this third truth and warning that comes. Proceed with marital foreplay. And the warning there is that if you fail to pursue sexual foreplay, it makes intimacy distant or colder. Now, many marriages suffer because one or both settle down in the marriage. After the engagement and interest in one another, there is less of a pursuit toward the other person. And the thing that sexual activity and expression does is help hold that marriage together, and being sexually fulfilled and having the physical and emotional closeness that is supposed to be in marriage. Your marriage is going to struggle if there is not this pursuit of foreplay between you and your spouse. This expression is like emotional glue that helps you stay united in that one flesh relationship that Scripture talks about. And the moments you have together that unite you with the intimacy that comes with that. Foreplay brings in this excitement and anticipation of the time that you would have with your spouse, and that intimate sexual time together becomes even more enjoyable between the two of you. So for believers in Jesus Christ, there's even this greater spiritual aspect and purpose that comes from pursuing another person and giving yourself to another person. And that understanding is built in love and what we do in relation to God, to draw close to God, and how sin hinders that intimacy with God that should be there, our Creator. We know from Scripture that God the Son, Jesus Christ, is the primary agent of creation. And He, as your Creator, is the one that gave His life for you. God the Son is the one that was the spiritual being equal with God in heaven, and He took upon Himself flesh. And this is closely related to the crown of creation, mankind, because He became the God-man, and Jesus is the last Adam, as Scripture refers to Him as. Listen to this verse in 1 Corinthians that says that, chapter 15, verse 45. And so it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living being. The last Adam became a life-giving spirit. Jesus let His natural body die so that He could bring redemption to mankind, so that He could buy mankind back from the slave market of sin, what that word redemption really means. And do that for all who put their faith in Him, who trust in Jesus Christ. And they will be changed to have a resurrected body because their spirit is made alive, and when their body that is corrupted by sin dies, then that resurrected body is what God promises, that glorified body. So faith in Jesus Christ makes the spirit alive and makes the redemption possible when the resurrected body is given, because Jesus died, was buried, and rose again, even as that great chapter continues in 1 Corinthians 15. So listen to this about that in that chapter in verses 51 and 52. It says, behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. Now, you may want to review the video I did that talks about resurrection and the rapture. And so that rapture video has an interesting thing in it to consider, but it deals with this subject a little more in that glorified body. But consider one final verse here for this greater understanding, and that's in Philippians. Philippians chapter 3, verse 21. It says, who will transform our lowly body, that it may be conformed to His glorious body, according to the working by which He is able even to subdue all things to Himself. So one day we will get this resurrected body, and it will not be corrupted by lust and sin in this body. So getting back to this subject for today, and how we should stop talking about sex publicly and joking about it, let's just consider and summarize these three key things I've talked about again here. The true statements are this: the truth about sexual talk and joking. Number one, privatize sexual intimacy. Number two, protect sexual expression. And number three, proceed with marital foreplay. Oh, friends, like this video. Please share it. This is important for all of what happens in society. Subscribe to the channel if you're not. I know people are coming here that aren't subscribed. And hit the notification bell so you'll be ready for the next video as we pursue how God leads us in a new subject. Thank you for watching.